we go to the first statement, and we will allow so you'll respond to a Mentimeter. So if you can get your phones ready, um, in the same format for those that participated in the first session, we'll use a Mentimeter to kind of get a quick poll of the audience, yourselves, and then a response from Haki and Daniela. And we'll also be mindful of the questions remaining though as well.
And the first statement, so it's a scale of 5 from strongly disagree to strongly agree. It is impossible for investors to combine climate, biodiversity, nutrition, and social inclusion data with financial data in a cost-effective manner. Do you disagree or do you agree?
Right, so it's quite the spread actually. What are your thoughts on this, Haki or Daniela? Do you agree or disagree, or would you say it's? I'm going to guess Haki's going to say it's going to be more complicated than agreeing or disagreeing.
Daniela, what do you think? I think this is more a question for you.
Well, my answer is actually like the results. It depends, because it's not a white, like there is no black and white reply to this, you know. I would say it is possible but difficult, and there are again trade-offs that you need to accept when deciding for one or the other. In our case, we at a fund level, we can, look at different indicators, different sectors, but then we're missing, by making this division per sector, or allocating the companies to a certain category, for instance, even though they are doing, climate smart solutions for agriculture, and tackling all of this broader and different, if we might say, all the transition themes that we have established, but in their own operations, when we do this categorization to say, okay, you belong only to renewable energy and you belong only to food and agri, which is out of our own feasibility, then we lose this, the holistic view. So that's a trade-off, and therefore, but we have to make a decision, because otherwise we cannot really measure it. It becomes too big. It becomes too large. So by having certain metrics and certain indicators first that are relevant per sector, then we can do it. But of course, we miss the nuances and like the holistic view of the operations of those investees. So it depends.
Marielle, are there any questions or responses in the chat about this statement?
Yeah, there are two questions I wanted to ask. They are related. One I wanted to give to Haki. Maybe it is from Lenovo. You can say your question yourself.
I think
okay, I can read it, but the question is, and I want to specifically ask Haki what he thinks about it, whether financial institutions are responsible for measuring this, or is it their expertise? So what do you think about this?
I mean, Daniela said something very important in her presentation, that they are part of the, Daniela, correct me, like a sustainability act. So you claim sustainability as Triodos. Once an organization, according to the EU laws now, EU regulations, not laws, but regulations, they claim that they are doing something related to sustainability, that there is some certain, at least due diligence data they have to report on. So that makes, if you're working with an organization, financial or not financial, over certain size at least, if they claim that they are sustainable, then they are responsible to collect this data, that whether they positively contribute on certain areas and they do not harm the other ones. So that is what they are. That's why an investor can become responsible. However, of course, not all financial institutions are responsible. If they do not claim sustainability, they can just say, no, I do not collect it. And I think the other part of the question, Maria, was whether the experts should collect the data. Am I right?
No, are they expert on it? But
Yeah,
yeah.
they are. I will not say. I mean, like the financial institution experts who are collecting this data are quite well qualified, smart people who are collecting this data quite a bit. So they are, I think, in the data that they collect, I think they are experts on it.
Well, maybe related to this, there is a question that came up also earlier, and I wanted to ask this also to both of you, like that is the standardization of data. Because some say, yeah, we are not all experts. Yeah, can we hire staff on this data, or do we also rely on networks that are there that can standardize the data that we can use on it? Maybe Daniela, what do you think of this? Are there data you get, standardized data that you would be able to use as for your own measurements as well? And are these things also to develop further?
Yes. For instance, there are many efforts in the impact investing sector to standardize metrics, to standardize approaches. One of those I mentioned, IRIS Plus, which is an effort from the Global Impact Investing Network, where we have, metrics that are already defined. And therefore, if you're using that metric, we should, be talking all about the same definition and way to collect it, etc. And one of the other things that I was going to say is that on the financial inclusion portfolios, an example is that we use Alignus, there is a tool called Alignus where the investee or the company completes a questionnaire, and it's a due diligence questionnaire, and therefore then that can be shared across investors. So it's the same information for all of the investors of the same company. And the food and agriculture landscape, there's CSAF, the Council of Smallholder Farmers.
I know it, yeah.
Yeah, financing, where also some other efforts similarly have been taken place, similar to an Alignus, where we have like standardized set of processes and indicators specifically for due diligence to speak the same language across the sector. So there are efforts, there are tools, and we also try to align as much as possible with the sector standards. So or at least with the efforts that our peers are also working on and being part of those networks.
Well, thank you very much. This is very interesting examples also that you don't fear the competition of the other investors by sharing information.
No.
Maybe, maybe Haki, you can say a few words on this. Is there any general information that could be helping to standardize?
I mean, I would refer to the same thing. IRIS Plus is, I think, really setting the standard that Daniela mentioned. They have a very detailed definitions and list of indicators that you can, in the worst case, you can make many cases take direct the indicator, but you can be also inspired from to develop your indicators. I think that's always a good idea. And also maybe World Bank evaluation team is also have extensive knowledge and now open sources available for the impact evaluation. That could be another thing to look at. But and also don't shy up from AI. It is doing quite well, I must say. That's
Okay.
scary.
I think I want to leave it for now. Shall we go to the next statement?
Additionality is impossible to prove. Impact investors are just claiming credit for change that would have happened anyway. Do you agree or disagree?
Again, I don't think it is impossible. It's difficult, but there are ways to do it. And from the presentation from Haki, I understand that well. Of course, the evaluation and or the ways to evaluate this additionality in the impact investing sector are the usual ones that are used are not the right ones, but then also how the cost effectiveness of it starts on the actual ones that but yeah, I think it's a matter of understanding where does the investor stand, what are they doing, what do they want to do on looking at the impact risk return profile, and then agree on how you're going to assess it.
Haki, anything to add?
I mean, it's not impossible to prove. I mean, my take on is, so as a researcher, I like really attribute impact for a certain intervention. So I love doing that the finance or the financial instruments change things and approve it. But as I try to explain, you don't have to do it all the time because it is, if you are proving something that has been already proven. What I try to say is that I understand when you have a new investment vehicle that hasn't been tested in anywhere else, okay? Then it's a good idea to do a really good research study to see whether, and if you're using public money, then it is a very good idea that you show that this new instrument creates positive impact or not. And you have a causal study design. But then once you prove it, once you have this in-depth study, then you need to replicate this. You shouldn't have to prove the additionality all the time, one and another. For instance, not for impact investors, but the microfinance has been discussed very widely. And let me tell you, microfinance is a very, the evidence that supports microfinance is very thin in comparison to all the popularity of it. There is a very good discussion in which cases it is additional. It really creates positive impact. So if you're a public institution, you want to invest in microfinance, then you need to check that evidence really well. And then you need to focus on that. So that is my point here. Because I am doing randomized control trials in developing countries for different social interventions. And let me tell you, it's costly. It costs a lot of money to do those, collecting data, the researchers, the constraints that you put around it. So I would say that you do it once, you do it very good, you have a really good theory, you prove the concept, and then as a researcher, you step back. Then let the practitioners continue with their learnings, and not to focus on all this additionality, causality, attribution, however you call it. They're all interrelated. Go with their job, and then check. And when they have a new instrument, new thing, they come back to the researchers or whoever they go, and they test again.
And one of the other aspects that I also would like to mention here, it's about transparency, right? Because it's important to, when you are doing, as an impact investor, when you're doing your reports, that you transparently communicate what you're doing, right? And how you are doing this data collection or data analysis itself as well. So these claims don't become just greenwashing, impact washing at the end, regardless of not, you're doing additionality studies or not. right? In general, it's important to just communicate transparently what is happening.
Okay.
Miguel, yeah, any comments, questions, or interesting remarks in the chat?
Yeah, I think thank you so much. And what you say, I think Haki also refers to collaboration between investors and research institutes. That seems to be very important. I would like to put this one question I think is interesting forward by, let me see the name. Sorry. It is provided by Star Molteno. And I want to ask it to Triodos if they are also involved in carbon finance, carbon credit tools, because additionality seems to be like nice, but when you work with carbon credits, you have to show the additionality, and you actually have to show it very much in detail with very extensive measurements. Can you respond to that? Are you doing this, and how is this working?
Yeah.
Specifically for carbon credits.
So right now we only have one company in the portfolio related to, or that are doing carbon credit projects or projects related to carbon credit. And indeed they're monitoring, and yeah, we're very, like, the team is also very closely working with them to understand better the projects, to define the metrics, to define how to do these assessments. And more will come through the nature-based solution funds, but for now, that's all that we have. So that's the experience that we have. I cannot say anything more.
Okay, so maybe we
Okay.
go back to the Mentimeter. I think, Bram, I could leave it up to you to choose which one, because I know there's two questions. Is there someone that disagreed with that statement that would like to unmute and just share their reflection? Or sorry, raise your hand first, otherwise we get 20 people unmuting at the same time. So anyone would like to respond to this? If you could just raise your hand. While people are thinking about that, Daniela or Haki, do you have anything you'd like to say about that statement?
I think, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I would say it really depends on the organization. There are financial institutions return first. I mean, they are private organization. They will not invest in something where there is no financial return. That's the reality of the, I think, world and the market system that we are living in. So that is my feeling. I have also heard about it from different financial institutions as well. But they also care about the non-financial outcomes more and more because of the risk that it could create for them. And there are impact investors which basically claims that no, we do not only care about financial outcomes, financial returns. So they are a bit of a different group. So that's how I understand. There's the impact investor is a bit of a different group than a normal bank that you are talking to. A normal bank you are talking to will care about the expected financial returns by taking into account the risk that involves an investment.
Daniela, is your mic? Very strange. It stopped.
This is very
Ah, yeah, here we go. Here we go. Now it works.
super weird. Yeah, what I was going to say is related to Hack's last point. Triodos is an impact investing, Triodos Investment Management is an impact investing organization, and therefore also in a very niche space, we have a lot of safeguards with our minimum standards. Therefore, that also limit what activities we can also finance. And as the first screening, as I mentioned, is also on how the company will relate to and how can they contribute, or their activities contribute to one of the transitions that we also envision to, finance. Therefore, yeah, it's, I would say, not applicable for us because we're really, intentional into looking for impactful companies. But from other more, let's say, general investing organization or banks or financial service providers, it depends indeed on the organization and their vision and the problem that they're aiming to solve with this money. That will just determine what it is, and not to say, well, of course, if you can prefer the impactful result, would be ideal, but if the organization is still preferring the financial return, then there are ways, that you can also embed impact into their activities, although this commercial lens will still be there.
Marielle, are there any other comments or reflections I didn't see any hands raised, but if there's anyone that still wants to voice their comments, do feel free.
There was one comment of Star Momento again, that in the British investors that are not actually looking at financial returns, but are actually looking at risk reduction. So you'll find investors that are not only looking at financial returns, but also look at maybe sometimes longer term investments. And if they are in the water sector, in the agriculture sector, sometimes then risk reduction is more important than the financial returns. This was one of the comments. But I think otherwise...
There's also still a question I can ask from online if we need one.
And then Dylan da Costa from Theodore says, significant number of investees for the HIFOS Triodos fund do not make a cut because of non-financial outcomes. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Bram, you wanted to say something?
No, there was also a question in Curator, and that links a bit to this, to when does a impact investor decide to invest in a new innovation? And maybe I can read it out. It was from Taiwo Tela Latona. She was saying, for public research institutes developing climate-smart agro-processing technologies such as post-harvest losses reduction or waste valorization, what specific bankable indicators do impact investors like Triodos look for before they finance the commercial scaling of these innovations? So when do you take that step in new innovations around circularity, around valorization, around post-harvest reduction, and so forth?
Well, I think I can only speak from the impact angle of the investment process, and I would say my colleague Dylan would even have more insights than I would in this case. But well, as I've said, like we select first if the company is already, contributing to one of the transitions that we're aiming to finance, then that, kind of like continues, the company can continue in the process and etc. Then follow in due diligence. So yeah, I would say like if Dylan can join or like say something about it afterwards for more the investment process would be fantastic, because yeah, I have a limited knowledge on then what goes in there. Can you repeat the question?
You want to join?
Yes, sorry, I missed the question.
Yeah, sort of the question was, what specific bankable indicators do impact investors like Triodos look like before financing commercial scaling of innovations like waste valorization or new ways of reducing post-harvest losses, new technologies, food processing, and so forth?
Yeah, so on that, I think there are obviously a lot of factors depending on the subsector. I think in quite a few cases we are looking at the downstream side, right? Who are the clients? Who are the off-takers? Those are things which are quite important, but it's very specific by subsector.
And to say, just to add, indeed, thanks, Dylan, to add that as we discussed, we have then indicators specifically for the fund and specific for the specific subsector. Well, not subsector, but broad sector. So it's difficult to say just like which specific ones are for, you know, waste management solutions. But it's part of, it's assessed during due diligence, right? And discussed with the company. It's not, at this point, we cannot say specifically if there are specific indicators for each specific subsector. But it is discussed, and then when the company comes in, then we look at those specific ones.
Okay, I think
Marielle, maybe we can ask Marielle, maybe you want to pick one last question, and if there's time afterwards, one last question from Bram, from anywhere in the chat or from the curator comments that we've had.
well, we have 10 minutes to close, but what I saw from the chat is that many of the people in the audience think in general that the financial, the traditional financial sector still prioritizes on financial outcomes, and also specifically on short-term financial outcomes. So, there is several people indicated that it would be good to create universal indicators that helps also not only to harmonize in the measurements, but also to make it more cost effective. So that is what I saw from the audience. Maybe Bram, if you have any question you still want to ask, or otherwise I think we need to close the session. And because I saw there's many people who have also in the chat shared some of the examples or suggestions, so we will compile them and also bring them back to you. And any of the questions that were not addressed, we will put forward to the speakers. But maybe Bram, if you want to say something, otherwise let's.
Yeah, there's one more question I've noted down from Roni Mutebi, which is also a bit linked to this. When do impact investors make the step to invest? And his question is, financial institutions typically are out to make profit and meet regulatory requirements with central banks. What else can compel a typical impact investor to start investing in sustainable food systems? So what is something you often see that kind of brings you in, or say like, hey, we're going to invest in this besides the financial profit?
And they didn't do it before. That's the question, right? That they didn't do it before.
Yeah, his question was, what else can compel a bank to invest in sustainable food systems?
Maybe pressure from the government.
I mean, it's just that I think there are opportunities, right? We know there is.
Yeah.
So it's really, just a matter of taking a decision and acting on it. But yeah, indeed, government pressure or if they're really looking into more like this commercial lens and then following the trends and like the developments in the food and agriculture sector, and when they see, like a very good opportunity from a return perspective to go there as well. There are certain subsectors within the food agri chain or system in general that, you can always tap into, depending also on the previous activities that you were doing. So if you're looking more into technology or like, technological developments, then there are ways, that many ways that tech is involved in food systems.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe if I may say something, actually, we know we wanted to have somebody from the central bank of the government, but we know that some central banks start to ask financial institutions to report on climate impact. So sometimes that can help them to pressure. And on the other hand, of course, there are also, if there are blended finance constructions, very often then investments will force these kind of blended constructions will force the investors to also look at non-financial indicators, definitely. But maybe if I may say something, I think that Triodos is one of the front runners in this respect, and really trying very hard to combine different indicators. So much as we would like to learn more from you also, and universal standards and what, so it's also something that needs to be developed further in the whole food systems finance sector, I think.
Just to say, oh, Haki.
I want to say something else. I mean, if we are talking about financing agriculture producers, when we talk about agri-food directly, it's always difficult. It has its own inherent problems. And it will always have a smaller share in the financial portfolios, I believe, at least. And it's like then maybe we should think about it in a different way. I always try to say maybe it is about how we can finance the right actors in the value chains. Maybe they are not agricultural producers directly, who can transform the sector through their value chain finance, to where they procure food products and everything. Who are these right nodes? If we could, because financial sector organizations are more willing to finance a food processor than an agriculture producer, usually. Again, there are technical reasons for that. So maybe we should start thinking about that way. Who are the right actors to finance? And I think financial sector organizations want to work with them, but maybe they should be highlighted more if within this entire network.
Hey, thank you for that. I'll leave Marielle and Bram just to close. Just a reminder, and thank you both, Daniela and Haki, so much for these presentations, your insights, your response to the questions. And just a reminder, this was kind of a primer for Module D, where you're this week in Module C on the operations, and the Module D covers the M&E. So this is kind of a primer for next week. And as Bram highlighted in the chat, a number of these themes and topics, you'll be able to dive into this in more detail once they're released next week. But Marielle, please, handing over to you for closing.
Well, there is not a lot to say, but thank you so much, both the speakers as well as the audience, for your very active participation, for your very active contributions. And I see also from the questions and from the audience that there is a lot of understanding. At the same time, there is still a lot of challenges ahead. And as Thomas said, in Module D, we reach out to some of these networks that are trying to standardize reporting both on food system transformation as well as on food systems finance. But these are in development. I also think some of the solutions that have been mentioned, which could be worked out further, is the digitalization of data processing, and that helps to sometimes also standardize. This is something to look ahead in the future. But I want to thank you all so much, and we will get back to you with the recording of this and any other questions on this. And I want to give Bram now the floor to close this session. Okay, thank you, Bram.
Thank you, Marielle. I don't have that much to add. We will indeed share the recording. We will also share the slides of the speakers, so you can also go through them in your own time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Daniela and Haki, for the great presentations and the dialogue and discussion, and for Marielle and Thomas for joining as well. And all the co-facilitators we also have in this session which we cannot do this course without. That's all from my side, and have a good day, and see you online on the Creator platform.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Take care, everybody. Thank you for your attendance.